Hello everyone, and welcome back or welcome to the Cinema Critic Corner podcast. Here we discuss everything revolving around cinema, and I don't always do my best, but I try to take a critical approach to cinema and kind of find like nuanced ideas and discoveries. But I'm very personal with my film. I don't shy away from that. And I actually encourage you as well to, think for yourself, and, you're allowed to feel. But yeah, welcome. And today we're going to discuss This Is England, because I watched it, I think, a few days ago, or like almost a week ago. And I just immediately wanted to talk about it because it's now like one of my new favourite films. And I'd heard a lot of things about it before. I just heard really good things, but I heard it was quite dark, quite gritty. And that's kind of my favourite genre, like favourite themes of like that kind of realism and like natural sort of commentary on society and the core of like humanity, present in the film. And yeah, this film did not disappoint. It really blew my mind, to be honest. And actually, because of its success, I think 3 extra miniseries were made. I've seen the first one, so it's called This Is England 86, then This Is England 88, and then This Is England 90. And I've seen the first one, and it was good, but I'm just going to be talking about the film here, but I just wanted to add that there's extras in there as well, which may be worth something to you. But yeah, the film This Is England is directed by Shane Meadows and was released in 2006. And the film basically follows a young boy, I think he's about 12 years old, called Sean. And so it's the 80s, it's 1983 in Britain, somewhere in the Midlands. It's not exactly told to us where this is set, but they've got like northern accents. But I know it was actually filmed in Nottingham, which is interesting because I think the accent, it sounds a lot stronger than Nottingham from what I've sort of heard around. We're sort of taken on Sean's journey of being at school and being picked on because he's wearing like flares from the 70s. And I didn't know this, but it's actually like in those times it was very, very important to be in line with like the fashion trends and stuff, whereas nowadays like 70s, 80s, 90s, all the decades are here. And I just found that really interesting sort of comparison of like, if you're behind in the fashion trends, you get majorly bullied. And yeah, so he was wearing flares in 1983 and, you knew about it basically. And so he sort of feels very much like an outcast from the rest of his peers and like, he doesn't fit in anywhere. And he comes across this group of guys and they're known as skinheads. And I didn't really know what skinhead, like I'd heard about it, but I didn't really know. And it actually means a lot of different things. But I think the skinheads were mostly known, obviously they have shaved hair, and they're also known for like being quite rebellious against the status quo and against society and things like that. But the important part is like a lot of them were working class, and it was sort of like an outlet for the working class to get together in solidarity and, be a community and have people to understand their problems and their situation. And so yeah, he comes across these skinheads and it's just so funny. Like I love how this film's written, and the humor is just, the Britishness in it is so apparent. And I've always been someone that loves British humor, British comedies, much more over American. That's kind of how I was raised, kind of like just my vibe. I love the dry, sort of depressing, sarcastic humour, that pessimism that I think Britain is quite known for. But actually, it was kind of a sort of different humour. It was kind of like taking, like mocking each other, but in a way that's quite like wholesome. And because I wasn't sure what to expect from this group. Like I thought maybe we're about to be introduced to like a gang, and my prediction for the film was that Sean was gonna like fall in with a gang and like, but very, very violent and, get into all sorts of crimes and stuff like that. And although I was partly right, it wasn't in a way that I thought it was going to go. So yeah, so he kind of falls and finds this group and becomes really like close friends with them, really, finds like his people until like the sort of like, so a guy comes back from prison called Combo, and he was friends with the leader of the skinheads, and he comes back like when they're having a little party and stuff, and like the tone massively shifts, and you can kind of sense like there's like a tension in the air, and it's sort of like a very, very different vibe. And I don't want to spoil anything, but the film talks a lot about, I mean, it's kind of sad in a way that not much has changed like 20 years later, and we're still discussing similar themes and issues at the moment in politics, because basically Combo changes in prison and he kind of becomes a bit very radicalized in terms of being English, being from the working class, but feeling like he was let down by his dad and his family. This is talked about, but like this is sort of my interpretation, and I think Combo takes it out on people that are different to him. So in the film, it gets really sad. Like I actually did shed a tear, and I don't often do that in films, but ones that touch on race and prejudice and injustice like this really, really get to me. And I think it was done just so beautifully in a way that really, really just humanizes everyone. It doesn't villainize everyone. Like everyone gets their own little like they're all just very human. And yeah, Combo takes out his pain and his anger on people of color and gets Sean to sort of like follow him in this path, in this way of life. And so actually in real life in 1980s Britain, so in the film as well, so they follow National Front, and National Front was actually a real movement in Britain. And it's kind of like how you think of, I'm being careful not to be too political, but I'm like, why not? Yeah. So kind of like how reform might be into like today's Britain, or like the English Defence League and things like that. So very like nationalist movements and politics and things like that. And so, yeah, there was a lot going on in 1980s Britain. It was definitely like a mix of things happening. So we had like Margaret Thatcher, and people were very, very upset with her and how she kind of led the country. The working class didn't feel listened to and didn't feel heard. And there was the mining strikes as well, and there was a lot of rebellion from the youth. And I think we saw a lot of disconnection from people, kind of similar to how we see now, in terms of very polarized, divisive political parties, and people, I think, are very radicalized nowadays from both sides, and it seems to be the same way for a long time. So that's kind of like the setting of the film, and so I think that's why the skinheads kind of took off majorly in Britain specifically, because actually from my research, the skinheads originated in the second half of the 1960s in London, mostly among working class youths, and they were distinguished by its rebellion. And then there was another movement in the 70s, and then a revival in the 80s. And again, motivated by sort of an alienation from mainstream society and wanting that working class solidarity. What I also find really interesting in the film was like there was a lot of kind of Jamaican music within it. Banging music, by the way, and soundtrack. It was just awe-invoking, because it really, like, with the more emotional scenes that were present, the score was just, I really remember it just being really like poignant and really evoking like that darkness that is within all of us, and it was kind of like, it was kind of a reflection, like Combo is just like another guy, he's not like this complete monster that's like outside of all of us, but is a very real person. Just down the street we might, run into someone like that with like similar beliefs. And I think another important thing that is within the story is Sean's dad died in the Falklands War, and that's often touched upon throughout the film. And I found it really interesting to kind of reflect on war in general and, the politics of that, and how, I don't even know what to think about it, to be honest, but, there's a lot of men that go out and fight for their country, and it's like, at what cost sort of thing. And yeah, I think that's kind of what pulled Sean into the skinheads and into the National Front sort of movement. Was Combo was talking about the Falklands War and what was the point, what was the point of it, and like the rise of immigration happening as well, and again them feeling like not listened to and not heard. And yeah, I think in a way like Sean felt quite abandoned by his dad, and kind of like a betrayal almost, because he left him there without direction, without that purposeful role model, and Combo kind of became that for him. And yeah, it was just, the 1980s were a time of a lot of tension and deep contrast, and we had the ultra mega rich people living in the city, and then the jobless families relying on benefits in former industrial towns as well. So there was just a lot of contrast happening at the moment, and again we still see that today. And again, yeah, it's just mirroring a lot, I think, as well, because it was made in 2006. I think it was an interesting look at the 1980s because it also had the lens of the 2000s. And again, I think that was also a time, I think everyone's just angry and protesting all the time, in each decade. There's a lot of anger and a lot of resilience against whoever is in power at that time. But yeah, I really, really love how Meadows, he really, really hits those dark moments, but he embeds it all with humor. And there's just that is just such a talent to me, to be able to talk about such depressing and deep things while also making it entertaining for people, and making it like very cultural. Like it feels very at home to me. And I really enjoyed that about it, and it had just such a great charm with it. And I think that's due to the actors as well, just absolutely amazing acting from Thomas Turgoose and Stephen Graham. Like those two, just absolutely massive highlights for me. I mean, they were the two main characters, but everyone in the cast. Jack O'Connell, it was his first role as well, which I thought was really cool, because I had seen Skins previously. I was a big obsessor of Skins, and he was in that, and then I saw him in this, and I was like, no way, like it's Jack O'Connell in this. I didn't know he was in this. And he kind of had like a similar vibe to the character he played in Skins, but like much more developed. And I just thought that was cool to see. And I love seeing like big actors now, but their first sort of roles, and like kind of seeing them progress and seeing them, like, people appreciating and admiring their acting skills and their potential. So I think a lot of the film is about acceptance, and from other reviews that I've seen, they also kind of say this, and again about blaming your failures on anything like outside of you, and anything like that evades your responsibility and your accountability. And it did it in such a way that like it didn't feel like a preachy, or it didn't feel woke. It just felt like a natural and poignant watch, and I really enjoyed that about it. This is from Roger Ebert from 2007. Combo is released from prison, and with the lessons he learned there, teaches them violence, looting, and racism. When the gang splits in two, Sean makes a mistake of following Combo, maybe because he is more impressed by his strength than Woody's friendship. So Woody is the guy that he bumps into, the skinheads. I just like that quote, because I think it summarized it quite well. And I think yeah, in a way that's like another point of like, I think Combo reflected more of a father figure than Woody did, and kind of showing that like relentless, I mean, it says strength there, but I think it's more like force almost. Like he's so tough that it's like kind of like probably for Sean, like he's just a little lad, you know, and he kind of maybe wants to imitate that sort of force and that sort of like resilience, especially when he's been, you know, bullied and he's lost his dad. It's like, you need to be tough. You need to be tough in this world. It's a hard world. And so, yeah, I think that's why he kind of chose to follow him. But also what I really liked, I keep remembering stuff as I'm talking about it, but there was a scene where Sean kind of stands up for himself when Combo's talking about his dad. And I just really, really liked that they put that in there, because Sean isn't just someone who follows what everyone else is saying, or like even with a really scary guy who's just come out of prison who is probably like he's killed people, it's insinuated, but he stands up for his dad because he starts talking about the war and like stuff, and he just didn't like it. And I thought that was incredible acting and an incredible scene. I also just wanted to touch on the fact that this is a social realist film. I should have said this at the start, but what that means is it's sort of a genre or a theme, I think primarily in Britain, but I think it's more like European. And it's basically art that aims to draw attention to the real socio-political conditions of the working class as a means to critique the power structures behind these conditions. And so, I mean, as a sociologist, I absolutely love these kinds of films. Again, when they're done in a way that isn't obvious and it isn't spoon fed to you, you kind of have, you know, you have to use your brain a little bit, but it's also like done in a way that is entertaining, and that is like, it keeps you hooked. And this film just gripped me so much. Like I can't believe it feels like it's been ages since I watched it, but also not at the same time, because in the moment I was just so, you know, when you just get those moments when you're watching a film or a TV show as well, and you're like so absorbed into what's happening that, like, I don't know, it was really weird. Like my senses literally, like there was nothing going on out here. I was just completely like, it was like my eyes were in the camera, and I don't often get that. So that was really cool to experience that. And I really appreciated it, and I really am grateful for that experience, to be honest. And yeah, I think a lot of social realist films, they have an emphasis on the truth and the authenticity of human experiences, and again touch on like poverty, injustice and inequality. And I think Meadows does a really, really great job at raising awareness of this type of social issue, especially now, but I mean probably just throughout history, and provoking that empathy and understanding within us as well, from both sides. It's like, I think it's so easy to just demonize someone and not really go into their background, not go into anything of like, because, you know, they're still humans at the end of the day. But it also doesn't glorify it either. It kind of, I think it does a great way of showing us, just both sides. And also how easy it is as a young person or an agreeable person. So I try and see things from like everyone's side, but like that can also be quite dangerous in a way, because that could also absorb into my values, into my belief system, when you also need to have like boundaries. But as a young kid, like you haven't really developed that yet, you know, and you're just going to look to who's the strongest, who's the toughest, and who's like confident, you know. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And if you haven't watched This Is England, please go watch it so you can come back and listen to this. But if you have listened to this before watching it, then I hope it's encouraged you to want to go watch it, because it's an amazing film. And just strongly recommend. 5 out of 5 on my Letterboxd. It's just brilliant. It's so hard to talk about in a way, because I do want to get better at being technical, because I don't know a lot about the technicalities of film, but it's something I'm quite interested in. And how it evokes emotions in us like that. Like, I think maybe for me, it's mostly the acting and the sound, I think, play a lot, but it's the context behind those lines or those scenes. It's like, you can't just shove like an emotional scene in your face and you're going to feel the same thing as like building a story out of it, and all these elements that come together. It's really incredible. So yeah, this is England review and sort of an analysis and commentary. I hope you enjoyed listening and or watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.